Salutations! Recently, 343 had its weekly social stream, and this one showcased the coveted E3 2003 demo build of Halo 2, as well as another previously unknown build of the game that contained a few cut campaign levels. In this video, I'm going to summarize what was shown, and if you want to watch the full stream, you can head on over to the official Halo Mixer page to watch it there. So, without further ado, let's begin the analysis. So the demo was played a total of 3 times throughout the stream, with the first run lacking any sort of commentary so they can emulate how the demo was showcased in E3 2003. Regardless, there's a couple of things that were much more noticeable in this stream than in the older recordings of the showcase. The scene where Johnson is pointing to a screen detailing the attacks on New Mombasa, there's an 8-bit animation of Johnson kicking a grunt. There was an instance of some of the geometry appearing to not have any textures applied to them, or at least that's what it looked like to me when I first saw it. We also learned that the player is scripted to have an infinite amount of grenades and ammunition for their weapons. There's also an alternate pathway leading to the interior area right before the Gauss Warthog section begins. Within that same section, we learned that the frag and clear section from the original playthrough in E3 2003 was linked to a trigger volume that Sketch missed. It was during the second and third unscripted playthroughs of the demo that we really got to learn more about this build. The player can, in fact, betray the Marines, although nothing really happens to them in terms of the UNSC turning on you in the demo. It's also learned that the player already has the dual SMGs tucked away as their secondary weapon, and the exchange with Sergeant Banks was just an illusion. The dual SMGs function like a singular weapon rather than the dual wieldable weapons in retail. In this build, the right trigger fires both SMGs at the same time, and the left trigger doesn't function when using them. The trigger volume that activates the Gauss Warthog sequence was revealed to be extremely small, and when Frank O'Connor accidentally went off the beaten path, the next section didn't begin and he was able to walk around with nothing happening. It's also revealed that this play space is actually right next to the start of the demo. Once the trigger volume was activated and some more out of bounds traversing was shown, it's revealed that the Gauss Warthog sequence is actually scripted so that the player is teleported to the Gauss turret no matter where the player is. And funny enough, attempts to exit the turret fail, and the player climbs back onto the turret until the Warthog run ends with the introduction of the brutes. It's revealed that the Warthog's driver's seat is enabled and it is in the first person perspective. Plus, the vehicle physics are basically like Combat Evolves, where it's very easy to run over enemies as the brutes are effortlessly killed by this Warthog. The demo was revealed to also give the player an option to revert back to an earlier part of the game, most likely a hidden checkpoint with the push to the back button. It was most likely implemented for the developer's convenience if they either get lost or something didn't trigger correctly. The biggest eye-opener to me, however, was what happened when Frankie started to drive out of the known play space and onto the highway where the cutscene was supposed to play out, and it expands for a very long time. I was honestly surprised that all of this geometry was playable and had collision. When they booted up the E3 demo for a third time near the end of the stream, more aspects were revealed. The Marine that greets you at the Pelican won't change positions and talk to you until you walk up to him, meaning you two could just stand there forever if you wanted to. The 2 Marines that walk past the player as they make their way down the ramp will eventually freeze once they reach a certain position. Sketch proceeds to throw grenades at various medics that are tending to wounded Marines, and the explosion knocks them away from their patients, but the mechs will keep playing that same animation regardless of their positioning. Later on, it is revealed that the Ghost hijack is nothing more than a scripted sequence that takes place when the player moves close enough to the vehicle. Once the second playthrough was finished, we were surprised to see them run through another build of Halo 2 that was built sometime after the E3 demo, but most likely a few months before the Halo 2 alpha that I covered here on the channel was built. The main menu is structured quite similarly to the multiplayer alpha with the exception of an added option for saved films, which still don't work. The most important part of this run of the build was them running through various cut campaign levels that were mentioned in past interviews and documentaries. A common theme with these cut levels are their horrendous frame rates, so I won't mention them every time we move on to a different level. The first was named Alpha Gas Giant. The player is playing as an elite, but the HUD is still just like how it is in the alpha. This takes place in a much older version of the Arbiter level in Halo 2, with much of the geometry and lighting being left in an unfinished state. The next level is a simple AI test room. The SMG in this build wasn't using its final crosshair and was using the battle rifles as a placeholder. The hunters that were located in this room looked like souped up versions of the Halo CE hunters. Other than that, nothing else notable was shown in the level. Alpha Moon was where things got interesting, however. The mission description for Alpha Moon indicates that there was going to be a control room that the player was going to attack, but there never was one in the final game where the Seraph hangar took its place. It was discussed in older Halo interviews that the Burial Mounds multiplayer map was originally going to be part of the geometry used for the Alpha Moon level, and we get to see this concept in full display with the same skybox being used as well as the rocky terrain somewhat resembling the layout we'd eventually see in Burial Mounds. Placeholder dialogue was played at the start of the mission, where an elite calls the player Dervish, which is the original name for the Arbiter.
Oh, Dervish. That's
Remember
some
that?
deep lore.
This is old school.
Yeah, the Arbiters, this is out there anyway, but the Arbiters was originally called the Dervish, named after a kind of, actually kind of a dance performed by the Dervish people, where they spin around spectacularly.
And that ended up getting...
We had to change that for...
the GOPS review, right?
GOPS, yeah.
Told us we needed to not call it Dervish.
We also see very early projectiles for the Covenant Carbine being fired by elites who are supposed to represent heretics, but the standard models are being used as placeholder. The Carbine also uses the plasma rifle's pickup icon when the player walks over it, but unfortunately it wasn't picked up so we couldn't see it being used by the player. The next level is Delta Temple, and is presumed to be a very early version of Delta Halo. The level itself is quite expansive, and the skybox is very beautiful. The most intriguing part of this demonstration of the level was the interior section. This was the area that took place in a small 7-second clip that demoed the older stencil engine that Halo 2 used during the E3 demo, so finally being able to ascertain the location of that room was a neat experience for me. After that, they divert their attention to the multiplayer menu and we get a glimpse of a very early Ascension, but it's unfortunately never booted up. The most intriguing aspect of this page was the campaign options string. This might just be a placeholder to multiplayer options, however, but if this really was depicting a potential campaign option setting, then players were originally going to be able to customize their Halo 2 campaign experience in a much different way, such as turning off the motion tracker, different weapon sets for either player spawns or map pickups, and the vehicles that could be found in the mission. 4-player split-screen co-op may have been a possibility as well if this was true. Another interesting aspect are the 3 pictures used for Ascension in the pre-game lobby, which hints that every map was originally going to have multiple preview pictures that showcase key points of the level. Going back to the campaign, we have Delta Control Room, which is most likely a very early version of the Great Journey level in the final game. Besides the hilarious Phantom flip that happens at the start of the level, there's unfortunately not much to see here as the lighting is extremely dark. The last campaign mission they play is Earth City, and it's interesting to see this rendition of the level after watching the E3 2003 demo. This looks like it takes place at the part of Metropolis where the Scarab shows up to obliterate the Scorpion, but this play space looks quite different compared to what we have in Metropolis, so this BSP might have been redesigned as the campaign story was being finalized. The Wraith behaves like it does in the Alpha, where it charges up its mortar before firing it, and the Shade turret fires projectiles that are quite similar to the Halo 2 beta Shade. I'm kind of sad that they forgot to play Sentinel HQ because according to its level description, it may very well be an early version of Quarantine Zone, which is actually one of my favorite levels in the Halo series. Not only that, there was a screenshot that Bungie uploaded to Bungie.net several years ago that shows Master Chief in what appears to be an early rendition of Quarantine Zone instead of the Arbiter, and it would have been neat to see if the Sentinel HQ level in that build matches up with what's shown in this picture. And with that, that's the end of this video. If you'd like to watch more content like this, then check out my Halo Beta series where I cover various pre-release Halo builds in as much detail as possible, and I even covered the previous Halo 2 multiplayer alpha and beta at one point. If, and only if, you enjoy this video, hit the like button, and subscribe for more Halo content on this channel, and make sure to hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload a new video. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord server as well. This is the Vengeful Vadam, and I'll see you on the Great Journey.